Ooh, yeah, it's time for another Christmas rant. The Santa Claus 3 The Escape Clause. So the Santa Claus 3 The Escape Clause is the third film in the Santa Claus franchise, and it basically once again follows the story of Scott Calvin as Santa Claus, who is once again played by Tim Allen in this movie. And essentially, Santa Claus is under more pressure than ever. He's trying to get all the presents ready for Christmas in time, and he has his in-laws visiting, and he's got his ex-wife coming up to the North Pole with her new family, and then his current wife is pregnant and is due any day. And at the same time, though, he also has Jack Frost, played by Martin Short in this movie, who's trying to get into the Santa Claus business and wants to move Santa Claus out of the picture. And then basically, because Scott Calvin as Santa Claus is under way too much pressure, he wishes that he was never Santa Claus in the first place. And that wish comes true, and then basically a lot of complications occur throughout the rest of the movie as he tries to get back to being Santa Claus. And that's essentially the plot of the Santa Claus 3 The Escape Clause. And honestly, this movie is just absolutely awful. It's so bad. I rewatched it yesterday and I forgot how bad it was. I really did. I was watching it, I was like, yeah, I remember this being bad, but not this bad. Man alive, it's all over the place. It's so messy. It's trying to have like 5 different movies in this film alone. There's about 5 different movies going on in this one film, and none of them work, none of them come together, none of them gel well together, and it's bafflingly bad. Because the thing is, I should say about the Santa Claus films, I'll get onto the TV show that's literally just come out a couple of weeks ago, a bit later on in this review. But I should say, the Santa Claus movies, the first 2 anyway, I don't mind. I mean, I don't really like the first one. I think it's okay. I watched it for the first time properly about a year ago. I'd seen bits of it beforehand, or was it 2 years ago, something like that. And I remember just finding it to be okay. I liked the whole idea, but then I don't know. It didn't really do much for me. I was kind of watching it going, yeah, it's a bit cringeworthy. It just feels a bit like they're trying to force this whole idea to come into play and force the whole family element in there, and it just didn't really work for me. But the Santa Claus 2, I remember watching when I was actually really young. Yes, fully enough, I actually watched the second Santa Claus movie before the first one, and I remember really enjoying it. And then I watched the Santa Claus 2 again last year, and I still had a lot of fun with it. I mean, it's not brilliant, I'm not saying that. It's not even that good. But I think it's far more entertaining than the first film, and I think it's definitely more entertaining than this one. But at the same time, though, I remember liking the Santa Claus 2. And then I watched the Santa Claus 3 The Escape Clause for the first time last year, and I couldn't believe how bad it was. Like I said before, it's about 5 different movies in one, and it can't fully decide what it wants to be, what story to want to tell. Does it want to tell a story about the in-laws coming up for Christmas and, Santa Claus trying to get along with his in-laws? Does it want to tell the story about the pregnancy just before Christmas? Does it want to tell the story about Jack Frost trying to take over Christmas? Does it want to tell the story about his ex-wife coming up for Christmas with her new family? What story does it want to tell? And none of it works. None of it does. But at the same time, though, it's not unwatchable. I'd be lying if I said I didn't have a slightly fun time watching this movie yesterday, or rewatching this movie yesterday, because my eyes were just glued to the screen, and not because it was compelling or captivating or anything like that. It's just because I was watching it going, who thought this was a good idea? Who sat down and went, right, for the Santa Claus 3, we're going to have this going on, this going on, this going on, this going on. And by the way, do we think we have enough going on? Actually, let's add in another plot line. Why? Because we can. It's just a complete and utter mishmash of different ideas and just one big misfire, and none of it really works. I know I've said it before, but I'm going to say it again, because I'm just surprised how big of a misfire this film is. Because I don't mind the Santa Claus 2. I don't care what anyone says. I think that film was fun. Watching all the nutcrackers come out and then not fighting them. I don't remember the film that well. I didn't think it was that memorable. But I remember all the nutcracker stuff in that movie. But in this one, there's nothing memorable about it. I mean, sure, Jack Frost is posed, but he just feels like he's in a completely different film. Honestly, if they made a Santa Claus 4, and I know they never would have, by the way, because this movie did really bad critically and commercially, but if they made a Santa Claus 4 with Jack Frost as a villain, that would have been better. In fact, the Santa Claus 3 would have just been better if they had the storyline to do the in-laws, and the storyline to do with Santa getting all the presents ready for Christmas. I know that's a bit of a generic storyline, or generic storylines, but at the same time, though, it would have worked better than having Jack Frost in there. Jack Frost feels forced. He feels like he's in a different movie. Every time he's on screen, I'm like, why are you here? Why? I don't understand why Jack Frost was in this film. Like, and why is Martin Short playing him? It honestly feels like Tim Allen, he didn't particularly want to do another Santa Claus movie after the Santa Claus 2, because that didn't do that well critically. But it honestly feels like he didn't want to do another Santa Claus movie, but he said yes because he could get a friend to do it with him. And it feels like him and Martin Short are friends, so he got him mated, and that's why he ended up doing the Santa Claus 3, because I have no other reason why... There's no other reason, in my opinion, as far as I can see, why the hell Jack Frost in this film. I understand he's the villain, but the film didn't need a villain. I don't get it. I know there's stuff with him taking over Christmas, spoilers there, but he does for a little bit of the movie, as Scott Calvin tries to take back Christmas and tries to get back to being Santa. The whole part of the movie where he's basically Santa Claus is just weird and strange and feels... Again, like he's in a completely different film. It feels a bit Tim Burton-esque, but like... bad Tim Burton, I don't know. It's just... it's rubbish. All the Jack Frost stuff, and it's suffocating as well. You're watching it going, this feels so forced, and I just don't care. And why is it being so shoved in our faces all the time? And... the film has loads of comedy as well, which really doesn't work. I understand it's a kids' movie. I get that. But it's what I always say about kids' movies. If they're great, they can also appeal to me at a much older age. I'm not a kid anymore. But at the same time, though, I can still watch, the Wallace and Gromit movies and still enjoy them. I can still watch, a fair amount of Pixar films and enjoy them. I can still watch How to Train Your Dragon and enjoy that movie, or the How to Train Your Dragon trilogy as a whole, because even for the kids' movies, they appeal to a family. They're family movies in the end. And so, yes, it might predominantly be aimed at kids, but I think people at an older age can still get something out of them. That's what I think about the best the best kids movies, should I say. And if you want to talk about, Christmas kids movies, I'm not the biggest fan of the first Home Alone, but I know people my age who still are. But at the same time, though, I'm a huge fan of Home Alone 2, Lost in New York. I think that's a much better movie than the first Home Alone. And again, that's not a film which is aimed at someone like me, but I can still get something out of it, even at the older age I'm at now. Same with The Snowman, and just, I can go on and on and on, because these are films which appeal to a family. I can't see a family sitting around the fire with this on the TV, with the Santa Claus 3D Escape Clause on the TV, and people getting anything out of it. I really can't. I can't even say kids get anything out of it. The comedy isn't funny, and it's so forced. There's moments in the movie where a joke, or a quote-unquote joke, will be told, and then the characters will sit around after, almost like waiting for the laugh track to come in. Almost like we're meant to go, ha 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 ha. And then they start talking, and it's like, it doesn't happen though, because none of the film is funny. And the actors are trying their best. I actually quite like Tim Allen as an actor. I haven't seen him in loads, but I quite like him as an actor, to be honest. I actually kind of enjoyed him with Jamie Lee Curtis in Christmas with the Cranks. I don't think that movie's brilliant either, but I remember quite enjoying him in it. And I enjoy him in this role of Scott Calvin when he plays Santa. I think he does this role well. I actually quite enjoy him in the first Santa Claus movie. I think it's the best thing about the first Santa Claus film. And I obviously really enjoy him as a voice of Buzz Lightyear. Who doesn't? I mean, in the main Toy Story films, he didn't voice Buzz Lightyear in Lightyear, which came out this year, which I think was a huge mistake. But still, nonetheless, you get the point. I like Tim Allen quite a lot as an actor, but again, even in this movie, it feels like he just didn't really care that much. And I don't mind Martin Short either, but I don't really know why he's in there as Jack Frost. And I don't mind some of the other actors and actresses in this movie. I quite like Alan Arkin as well, who plays, Scott Calvin's father-in-law. But again, I don't really know. He feels really out of place. Again, he felt like he was acting in a different film. It just feels like none of it comes together. It doesn't feel like a Santa Claus movie either. It just feels like a complete misfire. And sorry, by the way, if I had some light shining on me just then, and don't know how it looks on the camera because it's quite sunny out there, so I just closed my curtains, so I don't know how the light's looking in this room, but hopefully it's still all good. But yeah, I don't know what the idea was with the Santa Claus 3. I really don't. And it's about 5 different movies in one, and none of it works, but it's not completely unenjoyable, because I was watching it, and I was entertained by just how bad it was, how bad everything was that was taking place on screen. I don't know. It's rubbish. It really is. And I don't know why as well, the elves are more annoying in this movie. They were more annoying than they were in the first two. I don't mind the elves actually in the second Santa Claus movie, but in this one, they were more annoying. And I also don't mind the pregnancy storyline, I should say. I don't mind the pregnancy storyline, but it feels like you almost forget about it through most of the film, and then by the end, it's kind of like, oh, she has to have the baby! Don't forget that. Good, yep, we just remembered. Yeah. And the filmmaking is terrible, the writing's terrible, the direction is terrible, and the acting is really not that good, and that's saying something because there's some actors that I'm a huge fan of, but in the end, you watch the Santa Claus 3, and I think you come out really feeling like you've wasted your time. I finished the film, and I was like, I mean, you'll never get a Christmas movie like that again. And I think for the right and wrong reasons. Because I'm kind of glad that it happened. Because it is just so awful. And you're watching like, I'm amazed this was the third film in this trilogy. It just feels like someone put a camera on a group of actors and just said, we're recording, do whatever you want. And that's reinforced by the bloopers. They show the bloopers at the end of this movie in the credits, and all the cast are just laughing and having way too much fun making this horrible film. And like, it just made me think, did they just place a camera on these people and not give them any direction, any script, because it doesn't feel like there ever is one in the works going on behind the scenes. And also, the film copies off It's a Wonderful Life. This whole idea of, Scott Calvin wishing he wasn't Santa Claus anymore, that's literally the plot of It's a Wonderful Life, where Jimmy Stewart's character, he wishes that he didn't exist anymore. And when that happens in this film, when Scott Calvin wishes he wasn't Santa Claus anymore, it honestly made me want to go and watch It's a Wonderful Life instead. Because that movie is miles better. It's a Wonderful Life is like, it's almost perfect. It's just an amazing movie, and you watch it every Christmas, and it gives you all these Christmas feels. It fills you with joy, and it makes you want to leap up with cheer at the end. And it makes you smile, and it's a perfect Christmas film. It really is. But then you watch Santa Claus 3: The Escape Clause, and you're just kind of like, I don't know what the plan was with this film, but I don't also know why they're copying It's a Wonderful Life. It's like they couldn't think of any original ideas. And apparently the franchise hasn't learned its lesson. A couple of weeks ago, the Santa Clauses started on Disney Plus, and I was very busy a couple of weeks ago. But I didn't actually get around to watching the Santa Clauses TV show till yesterday. I watched the first 3 episodes yesterday, and it's just as bad as the Santa Claus 3. They haven't learnt the lesson. You'd think if they're going to try and reignite the love for the Santa Claus franchise, they would tap into more of the nostalgia and more of what worked from the first 2 Santa Claus films, and maybe even the third one, because there's a couple elements in here which are kind of okay, but in the end, no. I only watched the first 3 episodes, and I found it unbearable. As much as I don't like the Santa Claus 3: The Escape Clause, it's still bearable to watch because of how bad it is. I can't even say that with the Santa Claus TV show. I want to watch the first 3 episodes. It may get better, but I have no intention of finishing off the Santa Claus TV show. And I really like Tim Allen, but I don't get it. I just don't understand what was the point of the Santa Claus TV show. I thought it was to try and reignite the love and rejuvenate the franchise. But instead, it's just cemented the fact that the Santa Claus 3 was awful, and that you should have left the franchise with that movie. But then they decided to carry it on, and the TV show is god awful. I'm going to watch the first 3 episodes, but I always think, if it takes. I always think you should watch the first 3 episodes of a show to decide what you think of it. And like I said before, I have no intention of watching the rest of the series, because I watched the first 3 episodes, and the CGI, the overused CGI, was horrible. The storyline with Santa was just weird. I didn't know what was really going on. There was some shaky cam movement. It kind of felt like it was shot in a mockumentary style, kind of like, The Office on Parks and Recreation and things like that. And again, I'm not really sure why. Why does the Santa Claus TV show exist? I don't know. Honestly, if you're a fan of the first Santa Claus movie, I can completely understand. I'm a big fan of the Santa Claus 2. I wouldn't say I'm a big fan, but I'm a fan of the Santa Claus 2. But the Santa Claus 3, the Escape Clause, and the new Santa Claus TV show, the Santa Clauses, what an awful name, by the way. That's just an awful name. But still, I understand why it's called that. I think it's an awful name. And the opening titles is another thing about the Santa Claus TV show, which I despise. But why does these things exist? And then I remember why this exists, because they're made by Disney, and Disney just want a bit of money, and I understand that every movie and TV show is made for money. I get that, and especially when it's Disney, but still, I watched quite a few Disney Plus TV shows this year, which I enjoyed. Andor is my favourite TV show of 2022, and that was Disney Plus, and I thought it was phenomenal. And I've also heard a lot of people talk highly about some of the Marvel show. Even so, they are doing it all for the money, obviously, and to get Disney Plus subscribers. Even so, that's why they make these TV shows. They can still make some quality TV shows. But the Santa Claus is perhaps one of the biggest misfires I've seen in TV history. And that's not an over-exaggeration or hyperbole. That is me being completely honest. And the Santa Claus 3, The Escape Clause, is one of the worst Christmas films I've ever seen. But I also wouldn't, I wouldn't discourage anyone else from watching it. If you want to watch a Christmas movie that's so bad that you kind of enjoy it at the same time, watch the Santa Claus 3, The Escape Clause, because it's a very forgettable film. But when you're watching it, you're kind of amazed by the monstrosity taking place. It's kind of the same when I think about Black Adam. Black Adam is a film I hate. I really hate it. But it's kind of entertaining for the wrong reasons. And that's also kind of how I feel about Santa Claus 3. But anyway, the Santa Claus 3, The Escape Clause, it's coming on Disney Plus, and I wouldn't have paid to watch it, so luckily I did get to watch it on Disney Plus, because like I said before, I wouldn't pay to watch it. So getting to watch it for free, I think even then I was robbed of my own time and just life with this film. And I have no plan to rewatch it again. I did rewatch it this week today, but rewatching it was something else. It really was. And it's 5 different movies in one. None of it works. The musical score, by the way, is way over the top as well, and the use of CGI is really bad, and it's just really, really silly. And I know it's based in the North Pole, and I know it's based with elves, and I know that's all silly within itself, but you can watch some other movies where the whole elf stuff kind of works after Christmas. I think, again, that's a kids movie, predominantly aimed at kids, but I still watch it now and I can still enjoy that film. The Polar Express, that's another one. I understand the Polar Express isn't for everyone because of the animation, but that's another Christmas movie I can watch and still enjoy, even though it's a bit silly. I don't care, I still believe in it, and it still makes me feel Christmassy. This movie does not make me feel Christmassy. It just makes me wonder why they decided to make this, and I remember why they decided to make this, because of money, and they're probably trying to cash in on a good Christmas film in 2006, I think, when this came out. But I don't care. It's just awful. It really is. It's so bad. It's 5 different movies in one, and it's a terrible Christmas film. But what else do you expect from a movie called The Santa Claus 3, The Escape Clause? What else do you expect? And so, all in all, I'm going to say that the Santa Claus 3, The Escape Clause, I'm going to say that it's a 2.5 out of 10. You know what? I'm actually being generous there because I'm feeling a bit Christmassy. I don't know why I'm being generous, because actually I probably would have given this film a 1 out of 10. But I'm feeling a tad bit generous because this film does have a couple of okay moments. I like seeing some of the characters back from the first two Santa Claus movies. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I like seeing Scott's ex-wife's family in there and her husband, who is a psychiatrist. He's actually quite funny in the film. And there's also some funny, like, background sort of ideas. Like, at one stage, you see, like, the drinking place for all the elves in the setting where the film takes place. And at the drinking place, you have this thing called Red Deer, and it's meant to be Red Bull, but for the elves. And I think that's quite funny as well. And I actually kind of like the way they do the reindeer in these Santa Claus movies. They don't change that in this film. The reindeers look animatronic. And I really like that. The fact that they didn't CGI yet, and they could have with this film. I think the reindeers look great. And, I mean, I know it's not saying much, because the reindeers aren't used that much in this movie. I'm literally just looking for things to like about it, I'm not gonna lie. But, at the same time, though, give credit where credit's due. I like the fact that they use animatronic reindeers. I like Tim Allen in this movie. I much prefer him in the other two Santa Claus films, but I like him in this film. And there's a lot of effort which has clearly been put into this movie. The musical score is way over the top. I don't know what the intention was with the musical score, but, you know, it's not bad. Someone's clearly put a lot of effort into the musical score. I don't know who did the musical score, but someone's clearly put a lot of effort into it. And the settings still look good. You still believe that you go to the North Pole to a certain degree because of the way the setting of the elves' workshop looks. But I'm struggling to think of anything else which is actually okay in this film. I am struggling. It's a Wonderful Life meets a story about the families coming together at Christmas, meets Jack Frost kind of taking over Christmas. It's like, again, it's 5 different movies in one. It's a Wonderful Life. You got Scott wishing he wasn't Santa anymore. You got the whole story of Jack Frost. You got the whole story to do with the ex-wife coming up for Christmas. You got the pregnancy storyline. That's a movie in itself. And you got the in-law storyline. That's another movie in itself. I just wanted to say to the filmmakers by halfway through the film actually, I wanted to say to the filmmakers, decide what movie you want to make, because they couldn't. That's why the Santa Claus 3, The Escape Clause fails. I hate saying that name, because it just really annoys me. I don't know why, but the name really annoys me for this film. And the name of Santa Claus annoys me for the TV show as well. Oh, and by the way, this is an add-on. One thing I want to mention is by the end of the movie, they're all hugging, and you literally want to cream your eyes out because it's so cringe-worthy. You're like, ah! That's what I was literally like when I was watching the end of the Santa Claus 3 when they were all hugging. So bad. But anyway, that's another Christmas rant for this year. That's my only Christmas film rant for this year, because this is my last Christmas film review for 2022. I'd planned to do more, but life got in the way as it usually does. But I did manage to do this Christmas film review. I did my review of Die Hard 2 as well, which is a Christmas movie. So go and check that out if you haven't already. And I did do my review of A Nightmare Before Christmas about a month ago now, something like that. It might just been over a month ago, so I have done some Christmas film reviews, just not as many I would have liked. But I managed to get this one in, which I've been thinking about doing since last Christmas, since I saw it last Christmas, and was shocked by the abundance of terribleness, I don't know if that's a word, but the abundance of awfulness coming off the screen. And I knew I had to talk about this year, and that's what I'm doing now. It's an awful film, but I wouldn't discourage anyone from watching it if you feel like doing. It's on Disney Plus, and you know what? It's definitely something, and it's not completely unwatchable, but at the same time, though, it's kind of watchable for the wrong reasons, and it's just... it's a complete Christmas mishmash. It feels like they're just trying to conform to all these different Christmas traditions in the film, and none of it works. None of it works. But it does exist, and I'm kind of amazed that it does, because I don't know what the intention for this film, and I don't know what the filmmakers are trying to do either. And none of the comedy works. The characters are all boring and bland and just rubbish. The acting's rubbish, the directing's rubbish as well, and it could have been good. After the Santa Claus 2, it could have been good. But I personally think it's absolutely awful. And so, all in all, I'm going to say that the Santa Claus 3, the escape clause, I'm going to say that it's a 2.5 out of 10 from me. Anyway guys, what do you think of the Santa Claus 3, the escape clause? Please do comment down below and know your thoughts in the comment section below. Anyway guys, thank you as always for watching, and if you haven't yet, please do click down below and like and subscribe on this video, and look forward to many more, both film and TV reviews and podcasts coming very, very soon on this channel. See you guys again soon, but bye for now. Bye!